Hello guys, JIRA Bro is back and I welcome you to the introduction of my JIRA Administration course. So throughout this course, I will teach you everything that you need to know as a future JIRA administrator actually looking for a job to, well, become a successful JIRA administrator. So now the question is, okay, what JIRA administrators usually do? No, they do not create tickets within a project. They're not the product managers. They configure and administer the projects. What do I mean by this? When it comes to the project creation, JIRA administrators are usually the ones who are creating the projects. That's the most common thing you will encounter when you start working for the company. So you will be the one who is actually creating the projects. And usually what is going to happen is you're going to get those requests and people are gonna know in advance what kind of a project they actually want. So usually these are going to be either like a Scrum Master, or it's going to be a project manager or a product manager. It really depends, but those are usually the people who are going to be asking for a new project. And probably they're going to be giving you the names of the projects. So let's dive in. So you're going to create a project, and usually it's going to be the software development. Now they're going to say to you, well, either it's going to be a Scrum or a Kanban, but also maybe there are going to be some people who are actually not the project managers, so they can be like either from the HR or from the business or finance departments and the other departments as well. So in here you can ask, is it going to be a Kanban or a Scrum? But when they actually usually say, oh, can you create this project for me, this is most 90% of the time it's going to be the Kanban project. So I'm going to click on Kanban. I'm going to use the template, and also 90% of the time it's going to be the company managed projects, because they're going to be managed and set up and maintained by the JIRA admins. Unless those people want to manage the projects themselves, they're going to pick the team managed project. So you're going to say the company managed project, and I'm going to say pet center, for example. I'm going to name it like that. And also they might give you the key. I'm not going to connect any repositories. And this thing right here, and you're going to either say, oh, you know what, I want this project to have the similar configuration as my previous project. So you're going to tick this down. If they don't mention anything, just go for the create project, and basically that is it. So as you can see, as you noticed in here, it says enhance my board and backlog. Now this feature is still in the beta phase, and what I would recommend is actually to turn this off. You don't have to give any of the feedback. You just turn it off until it gets on the full production, until it's tested, because me personally, I have encountered one of the issues that I actually had with this. So you turn this off, and what is actually going to be the first step that you're going to do? Well, mostly they're going to say, well, I want a project lead to be set up, or they're going to say, you know what, I want this project to be in the category as well, and etc. So they're going to say, you know what, I want this project to be in the category of, let's say, business or something like that. So how you can change this? So you click on the cog, and then what you're actually gonna do is you're going to go on the projects, and within the projects you're going to select the project categories, and in here I'm going to say business, I'm going to add it. There we go. I'm going to go back to the Pet Center project. I'm going to go for the project settings, and for the project category, I can select the business and I can go for the save details. Now, the other part that comes usually are going to be the workflows, and those are going to, and when you configure a workflow, automatically you're going to configure your board columns. So that is going to be another thing that you're going to do. Another thing that you're going to do is you're going to add some people to the project. So how you do that, you go to the project settings, you go for, for people, and when you go for people, you're just going to go and add people. But as you can see, this is not on the free plan, but I will explain how this works. So when you add people to the project, they actually have their specific roles. But let's say you have like 10 people on the project, for example, and let's say that those 10 people are actually the HR department, right? So since they're HR department, in this specific use case, it would be rather better to add them in a group named like HR or something like that, and then add those people in. And what you can actually do is you can add a whole group within this project. So this is much better because it will save you lots of time. You know, this is doing it all of the manual, doing it all manually. So you don't want to do that. You want to save as much as time as you possibly can. So workflows, right? So there we're going to use the easiest one. It's going to be to do in progress and done, because when you go and when you see, this is going to be the default workflow that you're going to get. So usually you're going to have some requests on, creating the new workflows. How is this connected? So you're going to have a workflow and you're going to have a workflow scheme. So when you create a workflow scheme, it needs to be connected to the workflow scheme. But when you do that, you also need to apply it to your project. So how you do this? You go click on a cog, you go for the issues, you went for the issues, you go for the workflows, and in here I had for the pet center, let me just see it in here. Yeah, here we go. It says software simplified workflow for project pet and the other things. The best practice for this is not to create a workflow from the scratch. You just copy the existing workflow, you just rename it to pet workflow. You can delete this description, you're not going to need that. You click on copy and it copies the whole workflow. So we need statuses like to do, and mostly to do is not defined within the JIRA by default. So when you're creating a new one, JIRA is going to ask you what kind of in what kind of a status this is. So because there are 3 statuses in JIRA, so you have to do, in progress, and done status. So when something is in to do, well, of course it's going to be in the to do status. But what is going on in here? You can see that when you create an issue, it goes straight to the backlog. We don't want this. So how do you actually change this? So you're going to select this create transition. So this line right here, with the arrow is actually called a transition right here. So you're going to hover your mouse until you see it like a cross, and you're just gonna move it like this to the to-do, and he's going to say sure. You're going to say save, and you can remove this. All right, so now we don't need selected for development, in progress, and done. Now it really depends on the team how they actually want to have their workflows. Are they gonna be like, I can move this issue however I want. I can move it from into do to done already, and it's in there. It really depends on how they operate. So you can investigate that as well. So you can ask them. It's really important as a JIRA admin to ask a lot of questions. And when you ask a lot of questions, you get clarified answers. So it can happen that it will go from to do, in progress, and done, but usually when it comes to especially software development, things don't go like that, because there's some processes and there are actually some things that need to be verified. It doesn't go straight from to do into done just like that. It doesn't simply work like that. So mostly on your job, you're going to be encountering with the next word, and those are transitions. So it's really important to know that transition is like hopping from one status to the another. What this actually means. So I'm in the to do, and I just move it in here in the progress, and it says here add transition. It's really important to name it, and I can say start work. Now we don't want to have it, and we don't want to have any screen in here. So it's really important, because screens are a different thing, and I'm going to be talking about the screens in the upcoming tutorials. So this is like a heads up what is actually being what you're going to be expecting on the work when you get assigned to actually create and do something. All right, so I'm going to say add, and as you can see in here I have a transition. In this tutorial I'm going to be making very basic transitions. There are not going to be any verifiers, no conditions, no post functions, because that is a different topic that needs to be covered, right? And from in progress I'm going to say done, and I'm going to say in here as well done. Also, no additional screens added, because there is another thing that can be actually be in there. Why is so-called resolution screen being added? Because let's say for some reason your team decides to not work on a specific ticket, and that is all right. So you need to close that ticket, and for when you close that ticket, it's not going to be like, oh, it's being resolved. No, it's not being resolved, it's being closed. And there in JIRA, those things are called resolutions, because you have like something that is resolved, something that is like maybe there is a duplicate of an issue, or is it closed, or is it accepted, closed for a reason. There we go, that it's no longer being worked on that issue anymore. But we're going to keep it simple. All right, so we have this workflow. Second step is, for every workflow you need to have a workflow scheme. All right, so there you go. So in here we have a simplified workflow scheme. So what you're going to do is you're going to copy it, and when you copy it, there we go, it says copy of pet the software simplified scheme. So what are you going to do? You're going to edit it. So first of all, you can remove this copy of. So you don't want those things being left on your project, especially when you're JIRA admin. You don't want to have that, confusion. Imagine that you're not the only JIRA admin in your company. Like there are multiple JIRA admins in there. Keep that in mind. All right. So what you're going to do here is you're going to add a workflow here. So you're going to say add an existing one. So you're looking for your pet workflow that I've just made, and you're going to select all unsigned issue types, and you're going to click on finish. And don't worry that you saw that that warning sign right there. You can completely ignore it. All right. So right here we have a workflow. We have a workflow scheme. First step, you need to apply it on a project. So how you do that? You go to project settings, you go for the workflows, and for the workflow, what you're going to do, you're going to change the scheme. So in order to change the scheme, you select this pet workflow scheme. You click on associate, and it says here there are no issues to migrate. Usually when you're starting off and when you're creating a project, there are not going to be any issues that are going to be migrated. But let's say, for example, the customer wants to actually, change the workflow because, their team is really confused with the workflow and the boards and everything that is going on in the project, and that is okay. So you are there to change that workflow and actually apply the statuses on the new workflow as well. The principle is basically is mostly going to be an easy one, because you're going to see what's in the what was in the to-do status, what was in the in progress status, and what was in the done status. So that is mostly going to happen, and that is how you're going to map the issues, because you're actually, when this happens, when there is a migration of issues, this actually happens that you need to migrate and the change from one status to the another status. Okay, right. So I'm going to associate this, and when I associate this project is having a to-do, in progress, and done. Next step is configuring the board. So how you do that, you click on this one. Remember, this enhance my board and backlog is turned off. You're going for the board settings, you're going for the columns, and in the columns, as you can see right here, so what we need to do. And for the backlog, we don't need it. We need to-do issues, right? And instead of selected for development, no, this is not something that we need. So we have to-do, in progress, and done, and basically that is it. So this is actually the first step of like creating and configuring the project. There are actually other things like configuring the screens, issue types, adding permissions to your project, like creating permission schemes, notification schemes. And so a lot of things are there, adding custom fields. So a lot of things can go around, adding swim lanes, card layouts, card colors, all of those things, adding components, adding fixed versions. So all of those things will be covered. So that's why I want to end this video right now, because this is only the introduction and to get your feet wet, so you basically can understand how it actually works when you have something to create from the scratch. Sometimes you're going to already have the projects in there. They're just going to be some of the things and customizations, like for example adding a project category, changing a project lead, changing the workflows, adding some custom fields, adding some issue types on the project as well. So it really depends on the request. For now, that is it. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.